Welcome to the Startup Sessions, the #1 web show and podcast for trusting your gut, breaking the rules, and starting something meaningful. Featuring in-depth interviews with acclaimed creative entrepreneurs that have succeeded at building their own remarkable businesses. I'm your host, Michael Knouse, and welcome to the third installment of Side Hustle Month, where I'm interviewing experts about everything you need to know to start a meaningful business on the side. Today, I have entrepreneur and lifestyle fanatic Jeff Steinmann on the show. Jeff is the author of How to Quit Working, a simple plan to quit your job for a life of freedom. He's also a business and marketing consultant, and he's a speaker that hosts the weekly How to Quit Working show. And today, Jeff's going to be sharing some amazing tips and actionable tools that you can use to start and build a successful side hustle and eventually make the shift to becoming a lifestyle fanatic full-time. It's all coming to you right now on episode 25 of the Startup Sessions. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Startup Sessions. I'm Michael Knouse, and we are right in the middle of Side Hustle Month here in April. And today I'm honored to be speaking with my special guest this week. I've got Jeff Steinmann, and he's even, done as much as to bring his special effects to the show, his flickering fluorescent light. So we're in full disco mode today. So thanks for setting that up for us, Jeff.
Oh, thanks for having me, Michael. It's one of those things, like in business, you just got to relax and roll with the punches, because I'm not kidding, like 5 minutes before we were scheduled to do this interview, and we had to reschedule it once, this fluorescent light started flickering, and it looks insane on the camera, but we're just going to call that the disco special effect, and we're going to roll with it.
The disco special effect, that's right. Turning obstacles into opportunities here.
Exactly.
All right. So Jeff is the founder of a boutique lifestyle consulting company. He's the author of How to Quit Working, a simple plan to leave your job for a life of freedom. He's a speaker. He hosts a weekly show called the How to Quit Working Show. And I love that because it's like just so straightforward. Like there's no guessing about what you do. It's just right out there. and we'll talk about this later, but you have this, I don't know if it's a formula or just, it's a very unique terminology called a lifestyle fanatic. And I love that. And it's people who've really rejected that whole idea of status quo, of having a job you probably don't like or you hate. And it's putting lifestyle first. So I want to talk about that today. So really super excited to have you here because of the work that you do. And I've never talked to you before. So this is exciting for me as well. Yeah. So first off, how about describe, what is a lifestyle fanatic? Talk to us about, what that is, what that means.
Well, I'll start by describing the opposite of a lifestyle fanatic. And the opposite of a lifestyle fanatic is what most people are, right? So most people, they get up, they grow up thinking the way that you do life is that you go through, undergrad or high school, and then you go to college, and then you kind of think about what you might want to do, and you decide on a major. You don't really want to go to college anyway. You don't really want to learn because you're not really interested in what you're studying, probably. Mm-hmm. But you do that, and then you go and out in the world, and you see if you like what you just spent 4 years and more money than you could have ever even thought about spending, and then you go out and you see if you like it. And usually you don't. Like almost always you don't, right? Like, according to statistics, 80% of Americans hate their jobs. So, and the worst part about that is that we just think that's how it is. We just think that that's just the way life is. Yeah. But lifestyle fanatics say, no. I'm going to do things my way, and I'm not going to do shit that I don't want to do. Right? So lifestyle fanatics say, I don't like to clean the house. I'm not going to clean the house. And I'm sure as hell not going to go off somewhere to some job and do something that I don't like and could care less about all freaking day for 40-plus hours a week, and then relegate the rest of my time to getting ready for work and cleaning the house and kind of all that stuff. The lifestyle fanatics have said, no. Time is the most important thing in the world. I like to divide things into 3 spheres. So every single second in your entire life that you spend doing anything is in one of three spheres, and I blogged about this on the Huffington Post. I can give you a link to that.
Okay,
But
sweet.
the first sphere that unfortunately way too many people spend most of their time in is called sustaining. Now that's just keeping it going, right? That's just like mowing the lawn, making your bed, feeding yourself, and the biggest part of that, unfortunately, for so many people, is going to a job and earning money. And then one of the other spheres is building, and that's a sphere that too many people spend way too little time in, and that's creating things that increase the amount or quality of time that you spend living in the future. And that's the third circle, living, which is doing all the things that you love doing, whether that's playing catch in the backyard with your kids, having a tea party with your kids, or your art, or writing a book, or talking about something that you're devoted to. As you can see, I'm devoted to this topic. I'm living right now because I'm talking about it and I'm loving this conversation. That's where, unfortunately, so many people spend so little time in that circle. And the lifestyle fanatics, we don't tolerate anything outside of that circle. So that's why we take the thing that we do to make money and we get that inside of our living circle. So we do something that we really love and that we really care about to make money. And that's only one piece of it, but frankly, time-wise, it's the biggest piece of it. Right? Because making money, getting that paycheck, is what we spend, what non-lifestyle fanatics, that's the biggest chunk of their time that they spend outside of their living circle. And moving that inside the living circle, that's the biggest thing that you can do to make your life better.
Okay, I love that. I love the way that that's a unique perspective that I've never heard before. And so I really, really like it. And so there's, from my perspective, there's the gap of, okay, I'm here in this job and I want to move that. I want to put that in the living circle. And so there's that gap between where I am today and how do I get there, right? Yeah. And so I want to dive into that a little bit today. But first, I always like for people to understand a little bit about, where my guests have come from, like what's their path been to getting where they are. So maybe just spend a couple of minutes talking about, because I know you used to work in the corporate environment, and I can't, I'm guessing that you didn't so much enjoy that because you're doing what you do now and you're passionate about this topic. So give us a little flavor about, what you used to be doing and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, well, I talked about the typical path that folks go down, and I went right down that path. I went through high school and said, all right, well, I guess I got to go to college now because I'm not going to live with my parents forever because they need money. So I go to college, and I hated everything about it. Except for the drinking. I couldn't do that. And the partying and all that stuff. And all the shenanigans, which that could be a whole nother show. But so, I didn't like the academic part of it. And what happened was I didn't care about it. In retrospect, I know that I didn't care about anything I was studying. I mean, I majored in psychology, and I can't even remember all the things I majored in. But I mean, I changed majors like finance. I mean, everything. I changed majors a bunch of times because I just couldn't find something that I really cared about. And that was the problem. So because of that, it ended up taking me like 13 years to get my college degree. But fortunately, somewhere in there, the late 90s and the tech boom happened when you didn't really have to know much of anything to get a job in technology. So I started doing computer programming, which I kind of liked at the time. It was kind of interesting and challenging. And I did that for a while and went to school on the side and eventually got my bachelor's in business administration. But, that was kind of exciting for a while. But what happened was I really, really quickly got tired of that. And so I kind of moved more into the business part of technology, which was, for me, that was becoming a systems analyst and eventually managing large projects and programs. And I ended up managing a couple of the largest bank mergers of the websites for a couple of the largest bank integrations ever done in the U.S. And that was really interesting stuff. But what I found was, once the challenge wore off, I'd start managing a larger project or working with a different technology or learning a new skill. Like once that newness wore off, then it was just boring again. And not only was it boring, I was really starting to kind of step back and look at life and say, there's got to be more to it. And then there was the other piece of it that was like, well, all these things that I want to do, I want to travel, I want to learn how to homebrew, and I mean, I got a huge long list of things that I want to do, and I kept seeing this picture that like they were just getting pushed further and further out, right? It was just like they just kept getting pushed out, and it seemed like all of a sudden now I was going to be like 70 years old before I got to really do any of the things that I cared about and that were really going to make me excited. So I really just started to kind of reassess everything, and when I say reassess everything, that sounds a little bit more kind of smooth than it really was, because I actually got really depressed and miserable, and kind of hated the job because I really resented it, because I just wasn't seeing it. I just wasn't getting why I was here. Why was I doing this? It just didn't make any sense. And I'd always had this kind of flair for entrepreneurship. It was just always something that I was really interested in. But the reason I never pursued it, and it's funny that this topic came up because I was just thinking about this morning. Like, why didn't I? Because last week I was at a mastermind with, and over half the people, like, I probably could have been their dad, and like barely, but definitely, like, they were considerably younger than me, and it got me to thinking, like, why didn't I do something earlier? Like, why didn't I start a business like when I was like in my early 20s? Because there was so many reasons why I could have and should have. And the reason that I didn't is because I didn't think it was possible. There was nothing in my head that made me think that it was something that I could do. I thought it was for the other people. I grew up in a town where there was a major highway that ran through it, and the highway was kind of like the train tracks. We were on the old side, which was kind of the poor side. And on the other side, that was where all the new people that had moved in from St. Louis built their large houses. And it really like even though that was kind of a geographic thing that was real in my town, it kind of implanted this thing in my head that there was these people on the other side of the highway. And success and business and money, that was for them, not for us. And that was the mentality of my family growing up as well. But so that was a huge obstacle that I had to get over. I just needed to be told, this is possible. This is something that you can absolutely do. And the way that I learned that was just getting into the industry and getting around other people that had the same mentality, listening to shows like yours. And that's what's so exciting for our listeners here, because they're on that journey. And if there's somebody that's saying, I just don't know if this is ever going to work for me, or if this is something I can do, they're doing exactly what they need to do to get there, right? You're listening to people who have done it, and people who've been successful, and people who've had those same doubts that you've had. But anyway, back to my story. So I through a lot of just exposing myself to books and shows like this and YouTube videos and trainings, I spent a lot of money investing in myself and that kind of stuff. And I just gradually began to build up momentum until I finally was able to leave the job. And I'll never forget the night that I decided to leave. So I had set this date. It was April of 2012. And that was the date that June of 2012 was the date that I had set to leave. And it was April like 8th or 9th. And I had been really stressed out because I had a really stressful day at work. And I had been working on my business on the side all this time. So I was really kind of like working 2 jobs. And no matter how much you love what you're doing, you're going to get burned out at some point. And I was kind of really at this wall. And I sat down in the backyard. It was a nice night, and I said, you know what, I'm just not going to work in the business today. I'm just going to build a fire. So I build a fire. I like to just sit around the fire and drink a couple beers or think about life and all that kind of stuff. And I sit down to do that, and these thoughts started going through my head. And these thoughts were, why are you waiting? What are you waiting for? And as these thoughts are running through my head, I could not find a reason to wait any longer. And that's when I made the shift. And it's like the way that I got there was just one step at a time. One little show like this a day, one book, one training, one conversation, like one-on-one conversation with somebody who already has been successful or is just a little bit further along. Yeah. And that was when the shift happened, and that was the first all-nighter that I pulled since college, because I did not sleep that night. I took a long walk, and really thought about what I was doing, and felt good about it. And I went in and I resigned at 8:15 the next morning.
Wow. See, that shift happened for you, just like, I mean, over time, but then when it hit, it was like go time.
It was like slow but fast, you know what I'm saying? It was a long time working up to that overnight kind of a thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a cool story.
Yeah.
And you brought up something too that I don't think that, I probably talk enough about on my show or even with my clients, and that is, just the power of getting yourself in the midst of and around other people that are doing what you want to do. And today, especially right now, entrepreneurialism is just rampant. It's on fire. There's so many people doing so many cool things. And I was at a conference last week here in Portland called Pioneer Nation, and it was just this collection of like 300 cool entrepreneurs. They're doing their thing and rocking it out, and it was workshops. And I just came away like thinking, well, of course I can do this, because all these other 299 people are doing this, so why couldn't I do that? So it really is just that shift in mindset when you get around those people, and they're doing it too. So it inspires me. I know whenever I can get into that environment, to whether it's through a live event, a podcast, a show, a book, it's something so important on that journey. To doing what you love to do.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah. So let's see. Where do I want to go here? You talked about the lifestyle fanatic, which I love. Let's just go into this. So many of my clients, and maybe yours too, just feel trapped. I had a guy tell me that the other day. Like, I feel trapped in this job. It feels confining, and I want to do something that I give a crap about. I want to get out and do something, but I'm just not sure like what to do to start. And so maybe let's dig in and talk about, from your perspective, either your experience or working with your clients or whatever, like what are the like really critical first steps for people that are in that position where they're like, I got to move forward. How do they move forward? What are some of the most important first steps from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think we kind of talked about like some of the mindset stuff and getting yourself into around other people with the same mindset. Mm-hmm. So that aside, let's go a little more tactical now.
Okay.
So
perfect.
The thing that is the only way that you create a successful business, period, transitioning from a full-time job or not, is to identify a group of people that, and my screensaver keeps coming on. You identify a group of people that have a problem or an aspiration, and you figure out how to solve that problem or help them get to that aspiration. Mm-hmm. It's the only way that you ever create a successful business. I don't care if it's the Snuggie or GM or the Tesla or Apple or an entrepreneur listening to this show. That's the only way you create a business. So the first thing that you've got to do, and this is by far the biggest mistake I see folks make, is they don't look for that group of people. They look for the idea. Right, so they're in their head, inside their head, which is the worst place to be when you're starting a business. Inside your head, trying to think of the next Snuggie, trying to think of the next pet rock, whatever it is, trying to think of, this is the thing that I'm going to create that's going to be hugely successful. When that thinking is sending you down the path of the 60% or whatever the statistic is of businesses that fail. That's how you fail. Yeah. The way you succeed is stop thinking about ideas. and start thinking about finding a group of people who are interested in what you have to offer. Michael, you have a bunch of people who listen to this show, and I know you already have a business, but if you didn't and you had this show, you would have a group of people who would tell you exactly what they want. And maybe that's how your business started, I don't know. But when you get a group of people who are listening to what you say, they'll tell you what they want, and then you deliver that to them.
Yeah.
Right. So the first step, and that's a simplified way of saying the technical business term that we would use for it is building a platform. Build a platform, right? Yeah. So get a group of people listening to what you are listening to you, and then find out what the heck they want.
Yeah, so true. And today even, I've got a coaching program that I work with people, and I make micro adjustments all the time, every week, based on the feedback that I get. And it's just, it's not something I even necessarily ask for, and I probably honestly should ask for it more, but I just get that feedback, and I start to see those themes and what people are really wanting. And that's what allows me to make those micro adjustments and fine tune to my audience even more.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like, how can you ever have a dissatisfied customer? Right? I mean, how do you have a dissatisfied customer when you're taking all of their feedback and input and incorporating it into what you do over and over and over and making it better and better and better? I mean, that's just like, it's such a no-brainer kind of a thing, but we don't get it because, frankly, most of us grew up on the other side of the highway, like my hometown we talked about, where we don't think it's for us, right? We think it's for the other people. So we don't understand these really basic, simple principles. I had John Shear on my show. He's the founder of Video Professor. You probably remember the Video Professor commercials from the 80s and 90s. And he built that show largely through infomercials. And that's a game that you don't play without a lot of cash, right? I mean, it costs $100,000 at a minimum to produce one of those commercials, and then you don't get on even a small network for multi-tens of thousands of dollars. So that's a big game, and he said, the whole way that he built that business was about listening to what people wanted. He's got a great story about how he came up with the idea, but it started with there being a demand in the marketplace for this training on teaching people how to just use simple things like Windows on their computer. When that first came out, there was no good resource for non-technical people to just sit down and learn Windows. Well, he created that, and where I was going with that is that he did that in the 80s and 90s when the barriers to entry and to get in to the television advertising was so high. We don't have those barriers. What he would have spent $10, $30, $50,000 testing an idea, we can test it with $5 on Google AdWords.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting. It is. What an amazing place to be. And we had such a great time talking about comparing and contrasting what it's like to build a business today with what it's like to build a business when he built his business back in the 80s. And the thing that I thought was so awesome, and the reason that I love that show so much, is that the fundamentals haven't changed. The fundamentals are exactly the same. The details and the means of delivery and the means of getting information out there happens to be way tipped in our favor. I mean, a latte, right? I mean, you pay in Portland, what do you pay? You probably pay $5 for a latte, right? I mean, we pay under that, and just a little bit less than that in St. Louis, but for a latte, you could test a business idea.
Yeah,
how amazing is that?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think once people start to really that sinks in, like, oh my gosh, if I have an idea, wow, it's pretty easy for me to test it. There's a lot of ways to test it very cheap and validate it and find out if it's something that people really need, and if there's an audience that I have that's willing to listen to that idea. Awesome.
If there's an audience is willing to listen, that's the key.
Yeah.
And if there's not, that's okay. If that's okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. You've spent a few hours and a handful of bucks to find out, instead of what may have taken you thousands of dollars and lots of time just a few years ago. So very easy to validate and test these days.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Anything else? Any other critical first steps that you can think of for people that are just sitting in the cube and they're burned out and they want to just start doing something?
Well, I think that it goes back to mindset, right? And you've got to have a ritual, a mindset ritual. And what is so awesome for people who are sitting in a cube is they probably drive maybe 15, maybe 30, maybe an hour to work. And they probably have a CD player or an MP3 player in their car. And many of them might be listening to this show right now as they're driving to or from their job. But that is a time that is absolutely golden. I mean, it's almost like somebody built that time into that commuting time in for just this reason. I mean, that time could not be more perfect for listening to stuff like this. A couple things that I listen to that I still like. I do things today, and I know it came from these things, and a couple of the ones was the Success Principles by Jack Canfield. I listen to that a lot. That's one of the ones that I listen to many. And then Charles Hamill's The Master Key System. Awesome stuff. And those were things that I kept in my CD player and just played over and over and over. Honestly, I didn't realize how much was out there. I think I might have listened to a more diverse group of stuff if I'd have known like how much was out there.
Yeah. It's and today with all of the podcasts, I mean, it's incredible. Like there's way more podcasts than I have time to listen to that I'm actually interested in. And I actually I get excited if I have a meeting in Seattle and I get to spend 3 hours in the car because I'm finally going to get to listen to this podcast that I've been wanting to listen to for a while. Yeah. So great insight. Just leveraging that time that we're already using if we're driving to a job or even walking the dog or whatever. That valuable time where we can be immersed in that mindset of what's possible, what really is possible, and how really easy it is to like start to dip your toe into entrepreneurship and get a feel for what that's like. I love it. All right, cool. How about this is something that I've just recently kind of become more intrigued with, and that's business models. Because I think a lot of people, they make the leap towards entrepreneurship without thinking about business models. And I don't think it's absolutely necessary to decide upon a business model like right out of the gate. But I think there's certain ones that are easier for you to start than others. And I'm just curious about your perspective on that.
I'm a big fan of coaching and consulting. And that might sound like a contradiction, right? Because I'm so into lifestyle. But I think that coaching and consulting are a means to lifestyle. There's something, and what I mean by that is just working one-on-one with somebody, right? So like, somebody needs help with their marketing or transitioning or with their gardening. It doesn't matter what it is. Parenting their kids. I have a client who's putting together an awesome program around parenting. But whatever it is, that working one-on-one with people. And I love that for two reasons. And the first reason is that once you have mastered the ability to sell your services, you will never be broke, right? If I know how to talk to somebody who is interested in, wants and needs the service that I offer, and then I can deliver that service with nothing more than just my voice, right? Listening and talking, or listening and typing, or reading and typing, it doesn't matter. When I can provide that, how can you ever be broke?
You can't. Exactly. And there's magic in that. I love that.
There is huge magic in that. And, we talk about job security. I don't want to leave the security of my 9-to-5 job that, company's probably going to get acquired and I'm going to get laid off, Right? I mean, statistically, that's like insanely likely these days. But it's the ultimate job security. And I think that, and the thing that's crazy is, do you have kids?
I don't.
Okay, I don't either. But what I do know about kids is that they have no fear. They have no fear of anything. And I think, part of a parent's job is to manage that fear. And I think maybe parents do too good of a job of managing that fear, or managing that lack of fear and instilling a little bit of fear in the right situation. But I think that, a child will go up and ask you for a piece of candy, and if you say no, they'll ask you again, and then they'll ask you again and again and again and again, and they don't care about rejection, right?
It's true.
And so like innately, and I think that's the reason that we're afraid to sell, is that we're afraid of rejection, and we think rejection's a bad thing, and it's not. It just is, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things out in the world that I don't want. I don't necessarily want that picture frame behind you. It doesn't mean it's a bad picture frame. It's just not something that I want in my life right now. So then there's just had to be any emotion behind it. And kids don't have that emotion, but unfortunately what happens is as they grow into society, they learn all of these kind of things that we get, like this fear of rejection. It's like nobody can ever say no to us, right? Or we're a bad person. So if you master the ability to sell and then deliver that value, because that's all entrepreneurship is. It's all business is just delivering value in exchange for money, and money is just this thing that we've decided standardizes value. So I just think that when you have that, you're done. I mean, you're done. Like you don't ever have to worry about money ever again. However, I also understand people may not want to trade time for dollars. I don't. That's not my end game. But what you can do is when you do that coaching and consulting, you can use that to learn about what people want from you and what people see as valuable from you. So it might be as simple as, oh, Michael is really good at helping to coach me through quitting my job and starting a business. But that's a high level thing. As you have worked with clients, Michael, I know you know much more specifically what it is that you help clients with, right? You probably do things that I don't do, and I do things that you don't do. We have our unique ways that we add that value in that same general space. But by learning that, we're then able to take that value and we're able to leverage it into something that doesn't require as much of our time in terms of like online programs, books, CDs, programs, group programs, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's the other business model that I think is really critical for people to understand, at least as an option when they're transitioning from a full-time job, is kind of the digital delivery concept, because it's something that you can just do so quickly, so cheaply, so inexpensively. I always say there is nobody listening to this podcast that could not, within the next 3 hours, have an ebook up on Amazon. No question. No question about it. I would bet every penny that I have. Every single person could have an ebook up on Amazon in the next 3 hours.
That's fantastic. And I'm glad I asked you this question, because I've been thinking about this subject a lot lately, about business models. And I agree with you that the model of coaching, consulting, freelancing is the easiest, lowest risk, absolute, like no excuses. Anyone can do that because we've all got skills that we've acquired. We've all got interests. We've all got talents. And by blending those things together, you can come out with, something that someone else wants that you know more about than they do, and they want to know it. Whether it's editing photos on Photoshop, or taking care of pets, or creating spreadsheets, or you name it. I mean, there's a million examples, right? And so then it's just a matter of validating that and getting paid. And to me, there's nothing like getting paid. If you're a new entrepreneur, there's nothing like getting that first $1 or first $50 or first $100 or whatever it is. Because like you said, once that happens, the sky's the limit. You've proven to yourself that it's possible to be an entrepreneur, to do something to add value, and that people are willing to pay you for it. And that's the first step. Yeah, I love it. I love that.
I love the concept of the first dollar. I think it's so important to get to that first dollar, because it changes everything. It does absolutely changes everything. Because at that point, it then becomes just doing it over again.
Yeah, it's okay. How do I take this and like build it out? And that's all just the how-to.
Yeah.
And you talk a lot about mindset, and that is the most important piece, because the how-to is there. It's out there. It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
And
it's on good.
You're going to resonate with some of it more than others of it. But once you make that first $1, it's just, how do I make 10? How do I make 100? How do I make 1,000? And then it's just extrapolating that out into a model that works for you.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff. All right. Let's see, Jeff. What else?
I love it. And I think that...
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Well,
ahead.
I wanted to make a point. I think that
Yeah.
I think that folks tend to undervalue themselves, right?
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you. Maybe
Okay.
there's a
I think we had
maybe
a little
there's a
bit of a
delay.
delay.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, I think so. So anyway, I think that folks tend to undervalue themselves, and when they go into that initial like coaching consulting kind of model and start thinking about that, they start to think that they might be worth like 25, $30 an hour. I think that's kind of where folks tend to fall, maybe $50 an hour. Folks tend to think of themselves being much less valuable than they really are. And I think one of the advantages of that in the beginning is that sometimes can be a good way to jump to that first dollar.
Yeah.
Right, so selling something at a price that you're really, really extremely comfortable with, gets you to that first dollar. But I think the thing that you got to remember is you got to remember to always price yourself in a way that you can sustain, and in a way that will truly give you, like, if you do that X number of hours a week, make sure that that hourly rate is getting you to where you want to go. And I think that folks just don't realize how incredibly valuable they are. And that's another thing is when you're when you're in the space that you're best in, right? Like I think, Michael, you and I right now are probably like having this conversation in our best space. Like we're both really playing our best game because we're where we want to be. We're doing what we want to be. We're talking about a subject we want to be talking about right now. But because of that, it comes really easy to us.
Yeah.
So it's easy to undervalue it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's so easy. Right,
Yeah.
because we've been conditioned to believe that work has to be hard. Like it has to be hard in order for it to be worth something. So I think my point is just don't be afraid to go cheap at first, because it gets you to that first dollar sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But also don't be afraid to continue to raise
Yeah.
prices, and
Yeah,
be sure to
that's
charge what you're really worth.
that's really important. And again, this ties in so well to the topic of side hustle, because this really is like any coaching, consulting, freelancing model, because it's so easy to start on the side. It really lends itself to creating that first dollar. It really, really
Yeah,
does. It's such a good
yeah,
model. So I'm glad you were
yeah.
able to like speak on that today a little bit for people. I think from my perspective, and other people I'm sure have opinions on this, but it's the model that makes the most sense to me for someone who wants to start a side hustle. And it's just
Yep.
a matter of figuring out, hey, what's the best match of what I have to offer to get someone to pay me and to find my target audience, and just grow it from there. And
Yeah.
then what you just mentioned about valuing ourselves is so huge, because it's probably one of the top 5 things that I deal with my clients in terms of getting out there and putting a price on what it is that you do, because
Mm-hmm.
it does the thing that we love, and it comes easy, or at least natural, and it feels really good. Like, it's hard to value that. We think, oh, because I love it so much, I should just give it away. You don't have to
Yep.
do that.
Right.
Don't do that.
Right.
Don't do
Yeah.
that. Maybe at first to get some social proof and so forth, but after that, it's your brilliance. So, charge for that.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. All right. Here's a question that I've enjoyed asking a few people this lately, and I wanted to ask you as well, Jeff, is, after you got up and running with your business, what were some of the top things that you did to really establish yourself? Like when you moved from like side hustle to, business, what were some of the things that you did to get you to the point where, hey, you know what? The money's coming in consistently, and my business is going to make it. All you got to do is just continue to build it out. What were some of those things that you did to kind of bridge that gap between, just to get your business more ramped up and going?
A couple of things. I think one of the things that I did was I got on a lot of shows like this,
Okay.
and I started getting really serious about hitting Help Our Reporter Out, and what's the other? There's a bunch of services that you can go to find people like you or me who are looking for guests, and that was a really key thing for me, is just to be able to get myself and my message in front of a lot of other people. And I think one of the other things that I did, well, and by the way, I really love it. It's a lot of fun, which is the great thing about having your own business. You get to do the stuff that you love to do and not do the stuff you don't like. But I think the other thing that was probably the most helpful actually was just what I said, which was I started doing coaching and consulting, and I started working with. I actually didn't do that prior to leaving my job, and in retrospect, I had people asking me for things. I gotta say, if that was the I don't know if you're gonna ask what was your biggest mistake question, but I think my biggest mistake was not doing that early enough, and I had people asking me for it, and I was afraid to do it, and didn't think I was good enough, and I had this ridiculous business model in my head that I was married to, and what I should have done, like what I would coach my old self to do. Don't you wish you could like go back and coach your old self?
Oh yeah.
But what I would have told my old self to do is don't be so, hard-headed about your business model. Do what people are asking you to do. The people who have the money, who are wanting to hand it to you, do what they want you to do.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so once I did leave, I started doing that, and it was so valuable because I started, like, when you're on the phone or on Skype and you're talking to people, you start to really, really understand what they need, what they want, and how you can fill that gap. And you understand that in a way that lets you develop your marketing in a way that people understand.
Yeah.
And I think that was the best thing. I think it was getting myself out there on podcasts and shows like this, and doing that one-on-one coaching and consulting, because it helped me to understand my target client or my avatar or ideal client, or however you want to say it. There's a lot of different words for it.
Okay, good. I love that. I call that, basically just building the foundation. And that's, that's what I asked. How did you build a foundation for your business? And that's classic. And I think with all the options that are out there today, with all the different systems and stuff, it does become tempting to like try all these other things and kind of get bogged down in that. But still, I'm like totally on board with you, Jeff, is that the number one model for really building that foundation and getting the feedback from those that want what you have to offer and value your expertise is that simple coaching and consulting model. And then you can really just like blow that completely out by doing what you've done with the exposure piece. That's just like, setting it on fire. Yeah. So
you're building your business. Oh, and you're getting paid for it. Like, it's like people are paying you to build your business. I mean, what more could you ask for?
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think it's time to head into our lightning round here. So I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask Jeff a series of 5 questions.
Do I get a prize?
Nobody's asked me that before. I got to have some criteria though. Like, how do you get a prize? Can't just get a prize for participating. I'll tell you what. If you're ever in Portland, I'll surprise you.
All right,
or maybe if I'm in St. Louis, I'll surprise you too.
That sounds awesome.
All right. So, lightning round. Here we go. Jeff, what's the most influential book you've read?
The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
What about best conference or industry event?
Product Launch Formula Live.
Most effective strategy for growing your business?
Coaching and consulting.
Favorite business tool or resource?
iTunes.
All right. And lastly, what's the most recent exciting adventure you've had? Or what's your favorite hobby?
My favorite hobby is architecture.
Architecture.
I love everything about architecture. I know you've got some gorgeous architecture, and I've been admiring the eyebrow window over your left shoulder through the entire episode. I love it. I'd love to see what that thing looks like from the outside.
You are a true architecture.
Yep. So I'm right. It is an eyebrow window.
Buff. Yeah, it totally is. I'm in the upstairs of my 1929 Portland bungalow.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you. So there's a resource on your website that people may want to know about. So I'm going to mention it, and you can mention anything additional. But it's How to Quit Working. It's an inner circle program that you have in a 5-part video series at howtoquitworking.com, which is your website. So I noticed that on your website, and I wanted to bring that up and point people towards that. Is there anything that you want to add as far as, the value that can bring for people?
Well, yeah, I talked a lot about kind of like what are the things on this show about what are the things that you should do, right? What are the things that you should do right out of the gate to really get your business rolling? And I truly believe that you can build a foundation to quit your job in 5 days. And if you join the How to Quit Working Circle, which is absolutely free on the website, you just go to howtoquitworking.com, enter your name and email in the upper right-hand corner, and it'll take you through from there. And if you join that, you'll get access to that free 5-part video series, as well as a community of other people that are just like you trying to quit their job and start their own business. And it's a new program, but folks are loving it and getting some results already, so I highly encourage you to check that out.
Okay, great. And I'll link that up in the show notes for everybody who's listening on iTunes and the podcast. So you'll just go to the show and be able to find that there.
Yeah.
What about, Jeff, what's up next for you? Do you have any exciting new projects or things in the works that people should know about?
I just started blogging for the Huffington Post, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I just finished Ariana Huffington's book, Thrive, which is it's amazing, an amazing book that our world and our society needs really, really badly right now. It's about redefining success and redefining success beyond money and power.
Okay.
And she talks about some of the things that like giving and presence and really looking at life in a whole different way than we traditionally do. And I'm really excited about the concept. And on my blog, I'm actually featuring folks in the next couple of weeks who have redefined success beyond money and power, who've redefined success very differently. And I've got some really cool interviews and some really cool stuff coming out. So you can check out my Huffington Post blog at huffingtonpost.com/Jeff-Steinmann.
Perfect.
And,
fantastic.
That's some really, really amazing stuff out there. I'm really excited about that.
Okay. Thanks for mentioning that book, too. I just, I think it was 2 days ago, had someone else tell me about it. So there's definitely a lot of momentum around this concept of value and meaning beyond just money and power right now, which is really cool.
And one of the things that I'm doing for an article that I've got coming up is I'm asking ultra successful people of over $10 million net worth, how they define success. And I've probably talked to about 10 or 15 people, and none of them, not one person, has said money nor power. And I'm asking everyone on my show how they define success over this next year. And I'm looking forward to a year from now being able to share the results of how successful entrepreneurs actually define success.
Yeah, that'll be fascinating. Oh my God. I mean, the whole journey and the process, and then being able to capture that and see what the results are.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff Steinmann, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, you've given the audience and myself a tremendous amount of value and how-to and tactics and inspiration, which is what I love to bring for people. And you've just knocked it out of the park, my friend. So I appreciate it very much.
Awesome.
Great. It's been great having you. All right. Thanks everyone for listening this week, and we'll catch you all next week for a brand new episode of the Startup Sessions. Take care. Bye. Hey, if you enjoyed this interview, be sure to go to thestartupsessions.com and sign up to have the latest interviews delivered to your inbox weekly. All of these interviews are also offered on video at thestartupsessions.com, or get the audio version via the Startup Sessions podcast. Just hop on over to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast there. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I know that your time is valuable, so I do my very best to provide the most inspirational and actionable content for creating a meaningful business. I'll see you on the next episode of the Startup Sessions.